Hey, beautiful people. Just sending so much love today. Waking up here in Germany really felt like waking up within grace today. Just feeling such an all permeating sense of grace. And in a deep sense, almost feeling very little, very little sense of self, very little sense of being me in a sense. And instead just basking in this radiance, just basking in the pure sensation, the textural presence of life. Just getting back to Germany from um, Italy. We were in Berlin and then Rome for a few days. That was beautiful. So feeling grateful for that, for my wife and daughter and my mother. Got to see my mother in Italy, and God bless all of them. And it's also feeling just so good to get back home here in small town Germany, just living right on the edge of a forest. Feels like such an immense gift, such an immense treasure. I like visiting cities and experiencing that full-on kaleidoscopic cacophony for a few days, but it seems like over time my system resonates less and less with that degree of overstimulation, kind of concrete jungle vibes, and something just feels so utterly peaceful and simple about returning to our home here and seeing nature out the window right now as I record this, just seeing the forest. So if life feels like a lot, I can recommend getting into nature or perhaps considering moving closer to nature. It's hard to quantify what that does, but I get a feeling that for me, it's incredibly valuable. Back to what I was saying, though, um, yeah, it, regarding the sense of grace upon waking up, um, it can be hard to articulate this because I can imagine a lot of people hearing that, just waking up feeling this all present sense of grace and dissolving into that grace and feeling very little sense of self. And I was noticing some thought activity, yet the thoughts are just not not really taken personally at this point. At least not usually. I was just The thoughts are also seen as another texture, another pure sensation that's showing up in this full field of pure sensation. And at the same time, I was just kind of gently unhooking from the content of the thoughts because I could notice how the mind starts to want to go into the content of thoughts, which is a lot of how the sense of I, the sense of me, the sense of the small self kind of finds identity and creates drama is through the content of the world of thoughts and kind of feeding into that, going into that, mulling things over, thinking of everything that's supposedly happening to me and how I should. relate to all that and move forward in relation to all that. And yeah, there's a different possibility, a possibility that we're not really uh, taught about when we grow up as kids within our Western society, which is a possibility of noticing that thought is a tiny, tiny portion of the fullness of what's going on in any moment, the full infinity of what is here, this full infinite field of richness at all moments, at all times and places, is in a sense gargantuan, immense, utterly full of textural richness, such as these what appear to be fighter jets flying over us here. Uh, Hopefully, that's not portending um, anything ominous, but yeah, usually we're implicitly deeply conditioned into a life lived through thought, a life where we're deeply identified with our thoughts, a life where we grasp after thought, we crave meaning through thought, we believe our thoughts deeply, we give our thoughts all kind of solidity, and so we end up living within this kind of thought generated matrix and believing that that is life, believing that that thought generated matrix is life, even though, some features of thought are that thought automatically divides the world up into a world of separate objects. Words can only function by defining things in relation to other things, defining things according to what they supposedly are not. So when you define dog, that automatically creates everything that's not dog. And so words essentially give an appearance of a world of separate objects and a linear story moving through time that give a strong sense of solidity to those assumptions. But when we really look at life in any given moment, when we really look at what is here, I would suggest to you, if we get quite honest with ourselves, we never discover anything other than this presently appearing spaciousness, this presently appearing fullness of textural sensation, um, which in a sense could be called an empty fullness. And the emptiness refers to the utter weightlessness, the utter spaciousness. When we cease to define things rigidly, when we relinquish our grip on fixed meanings, the entire field of our immediate experience can dramatically shift, can dramatically alter in its character. In a sense, it's still same old ordinary life, and yet there can be a great sense of something being freed up, something being unhooked. Because again, we're habitually so locked into our beliefs about what this is and our thought created stories about what this is. We feel like I'm a little me over here and the world's over there, and I've got to navigate this whole thing. And to see the emptiness of that story is essentially to see that in any given moment, what is here does not actually match up with what the story claims that it is. In any given moment, if I get really honest and I look really directly at what is here, all I ever experience is this, let's say, field of luminosity, this unified field of energy. And I am not in any way apart from that field of energy. I am that field of energy. This body is that field of energy. And this field of energy, experientially, exists only now. Experientially, you cannot find the past or the future except as a thought, an image in the now. This experiential field has no clear boundaries, no clear divisions in it. Sometime while meditating, you can ask yourself, close your eyes and ask yourself, can I find the place where the supposed inside of me shifts and becomes the outside of me? Look for a clear, definite boundary between inside and outside. And if you go into that in kind of HD clarity, detail, you will notice that no definitive boundary can be discovered. Um, sure, there might be a sense of a kind of fuzzy, nebulous, ever shifting boundary. And yet, even that, upon upon closer inspection, I would suggest melts into this increasing sense of wholeness as we engage in spiritual practices that um, are high leverage, that actually do some heavy lifting in this process. We essentially increasingly dissolve definitions, our attachment to definitions, our grasping after thoughts and identities, thought-based stories and beliefs of me and what I am. And this dissolves the sense of these like hard boundaries and distinctions between things. It dissolves the sense of being a small being living out this elaborate story, moving through linear time with this big world out there that's full of drama and problems, and I have to somehow figure out what my cosmic purpose is in the middle of this, you know, war for the soul of mankind, or whatever seems to be going on out there. A lot of that increasingly falls away as we just continuously redirect our attention to this nowness, this wholeness, and notice that thought cannot say what it is. Essentially, we just start to practice not believing our thoughts, or even better than not believing them is to actually see through them, to actually see that don't, they really don't come close to encapsulating what is here. What is here, what is showing up in the experiential field at all times is this fluid, this ever morphing, textural, radiant presentation of God knows what, of pure pure mystery, pure enigma, pure flavor, a pure boundless, seamless living riddle, always existing only now experientially, and not presenting with any real possibility of drawing lines around something and saying, "Oh yeah, this is a tree. We're just going to separate this out from the full field and call this a tree." Nothing can be separated out from the full field. Everything codependently arises, as they say in Buddhism. This arises as one whole happening. You can't pull it up, you can't pull any of it apart from the rest of it. It all goes together in this deep way, this profound way. And so I would suggest that many of the most valuable spiritual practices essentially continually redirect attention to the now, and they go beyond just trying to feel present as a human being in the now. Like I'm still totally defining myself as a human being, and I'm just trying to become really present to my sensory input. That has its place, that has its value. Everything has its place. And yet, I would suggest that the practices that are higher leverage, that have more capacity to really cut through all the accumulated calcified layers of belief and assumption that tell us that we already know what this is and kind of block us from feeling and melting into that ever-present grace of this weightless luminosity that is here. The practices that cut more thoroughly are not about being present as a human being. They're more about being noticing a simple seeing that experientially presence is all there is. This presence now is all that we ever encounter. And on a very deep level, we have no idea what it is. So you're learning to relinquish even your very, very subtle assumptions about what this is, things you've taken for granted for the past 20, 30, 40 years. Things like, oh yeah, there's space and there's time and I'm a human being and this is planet Earth and I'm in a world and I'm in my house right now and I'm in my office and this is a computer. I'm recording a video with Zoom that I'm going to post on the internet that might hopefully help some people out there. You know, that type of story, which most people take to be completely beyond beyond critique, beyond uh, anything that could be called into question, the deepest practices totally undercut that type of story and suggest that it's a completely inaccurate partialization, a a massive, massive reduction, a fiction that essentially projects a whole bunch of solidity and assumptions and a really strong kind of dumbing down that makes it appear that I actually know what this is and I know what I am and I know what the world is and yada yada yada, humdrum ho hum, human life. The most powerful practices undercut that by asking you to repeatedly return to what is actually here now in this moment. Notice that it doesn't fit inside of any story. I don't, on a deep level, I don't see a world here. I don't see a human being here. I don't see time and space or a computer. Yes, I still have the conceptual maps that allow me to understand what people are referring to when they use that type of language. Yet on deep levels, it's kind of sunken in for me that this immediate experience now is a total a total mystery. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I am. I don't know how this is happening. I don't know how any of this is appearing. And I can really see that human being, world, computer, these are just words. These are just words. These are conceptual categories that people invented. And I can really deeply see that the menu is not the meal, the map is not the territory, the word is not the thing. And even the assumption that there are things is an assumption that really has to be deeply challenged because when we when we start to undercut all our assumptions and we start to really look at what is actually here in any given moment, again, we find this flash of what we would call color and sound and texture and kind of sensory data. But even calling it that, even saying a flash of color, texture, sound, sensory data, we don't know what any of those words refer to. That's a way that I can point to it in a more primordial way as a kind of uh, elixir, an etheric ever morphing event, a unitary etheric ever morphing mysterious event, a mysterious happening is a way that I can gesture more uh, more accurately toward the kind of naked, primordial, primal presentation of what this is in any given moment when we drop all the stories about it. In a deep sense, it's like returning to infant mind. When you were a newborn baby, you had no words for any of this. It was all just wow, wow, just melting into this morphing kaleidoscopic sequence of these different kind of blobs and energies that are all going together, that are all fused together, that are all emanations of this one blob, this one event, and you, the so-called baby, are not at all separate from that. Your consciousness is completely interwoven in that, and there are no words like consciousness or blob or baby or anything like that. It's just primordial shape-shiftingness, primordial shape-shiftingness, and that is still there. That is still ever present. We still have access to that. We all have a primal kind of ancient memory in a sense of that. And more than memory, that is just simply there, here, in every moment. Look and see for yourself the raw the raw data, the raw sensory data of what is here, stripped of all of its conceptual assumptions, stripped of all conceptual fabrications, overlays, solidifications that we desperately try to fit it into. We try to take this fluid ocean of enchantment and cram it into a little film canister of fixed belief, fixed meaning structure, fixed conceptual structure. And we fail every time. Inevitably that fails because, again, this infinite super ocean of ever morphing, ever fluid luminosity, strangeness, bizarreness, can't say whatness is infinite and is not going to fit within a finite film canister of belief, of thought, of concept. It's too close, it's too simple, it's too direct, it's too all-encompassing. You can't step outside of it and pretend to be some kind of objective observer. Nothing is outside of it. Everything that ever shows up is completely and entirely this wholeness. And the infinity of it may seem strange to use this word infinity, but a simple demonstration of infinity is to, I've used this many times before, but to just simply close your eyes and feel the texture of the light dancing in the space we would usually call behind the eyelids, and go ahead and feel that kind of in combination with the sensory vibratory quality of the whole apparent body of your whole organism. Feel how there's this continuity between this dancing pixelated light that's continuously dancing and morphing with an unthinkable degree of pixelation, and how that kind of buzzing pixelation is also mirrored within uh, the feeling tone, the field of touch, the kind of beyond touch, the kind of inner aliveness of the body. Feel how you can actually feel the aliveness of the body vibrating and feel that vibratory quality of the body melting into the vibratory quality of the dancing light information behind the eyelids. And just simply noticing that you could you could write a million treatises about what that vibratory buzzingness is for the next billion years. You could write countless treatises and you would not be able to pin down, you'd not be able to encapsulate what it is. So, infinity points to non finite, not encapsulatable, not pin downable within any finite structure. Because what we're dealing with here is literally, when we look with that level of granularity, we can see that there is a non-finite amount of detail present in every instantaneous flash of immediate experience, and it is continuously morphing, continuously shifting, continuously shape-shifting, continuously flickering and melting into the next permutation, the next iteration of itself. And that's happening in every sense field. And really, the divisions between these sense fields are arbitrary. There's really just one sense field of this wholeness. And the whole thing is utterly permeated, utterly saturated with this hyper specific level of detail that in every nanosecond appears as a never before seen immersive hyper tapestry, a hyper artwork that is continuously vanishing and reappearing as a fresh iteration of itself. It's continuously melting into the next iteration of itself with a an immeasurable degree of detail, subtlety, high definition, clarity. So that's a simple way that you can notice infinity in and as your own direct experience. And when you start to do things like that more often, you can make this a playful practice. Doesn't have to be a big serious thing. Just letting yourself be seduced by immediate experience, letting yourself get curious about what is actually here on an immediate sensory textural level, not the super reductive picture of things that thought claims is here. Like, oh yeah, there's little old me in the room on the chair. Like, of course, life often feels drab and boring and depressive if you're living within that highly limited narrative about what this is and what's going on here. Let yourself go beyond thought to feel the actual presence of infinite miraculousness all around you, bubbling and effulging and filling and spilling over through all the sense fields and this one all encapsulating, all encompassing sense field, bubbling over like a continual cauldron of kaleidoscopic candy. A continual enchantment. Words fail. I sometimes use very poetic and unusual metaphors to try to gesture toward this because it's just words cannot describe it. And the whole point is to leap out of words, leap out of the usual tunnel vision that words give us. Words put us in this progressive kind of narrowing process where things just get narrowed down more and more and more and more and more. Pretty soon we're living in this very small box of what we have rigidly defined ourselves and the world to be. And that often feels pretty constraining and disenchanting and rigid uh, and kind of robotic. And what's being pointed to here is another possibility where instead of a narrowing down, there's a possibility of a oh, a full-fledged, a full body, full beingness opening up, opening to the full field, relinquishing all the calcified layers of definition, assumption, and belief, and once again being able to actually feel the primordial fact of isness, jizness, full circulatory, full body, full textural radiance. That's a way I can gesture toward what this feels like when we actually become permeable and porous to it again, when we stop feeling like a separate little old me over here in my fortress who has to be all defensive and continuously feel like I'm in a dramatic story so I can reinforce my sense of all these layers of identity that give me a foundational feeling of some kind of security and some kind of status and some kind of safety. Not to, with full compassion for all of that, it's not easy being a human being, and with full compassion for everybody out there, we can gradually melt that away like the yolk of an egg. Just all these calcified layers of identity can gradually melt and like stream down, and we cease to feel ourselves as these separate, cut off, rigid, mechanical, disenchanted, isolated beings, and we start to feel ourselves as the ocean, as the whole ocean, not even waves on the ocean. It might feel like being a wave on the ocean, and then it can melt even further into just feeling like the whole ocean. And when you feel that sense of wholeness, the intrinsic quality of that again feels like melting into grace. It feels like melting into a unified quantum field of pure vibratory juiciness, pure vibratory angelic harmony in a sense, and it's all here and it's all well, and you're not even really here anymore, and there's just this equipoise, this utter repose of beingness, of quantum isness. Whatever it is, you can't say it. I'm using the word quantum to kind of invoke the subtlety of it. There is a sense of an infinite degree of subtlety or pixelation. Like you almost feel like you can feel the kind of quantum particles or quantum vibrations that constitute this subtle field of beingness, whatever this is, and you feel like you're melting into those. So there's a distinct sense of moving from the gross to the subtle. The gross being like, oh yeah, here I am, same old me on the chair with with a beer. To the subtle, which feels more like, oh, I'm melting into an infinitely pixelated ocean of grace that is all present and that is um, cradling me in a sense, holding me, nurturing me. I can directly feel that whatever this is beyond harm in a deep, deep sense. That what seems to occur within our world does not touch, does not graze whatever this subtle field of beingness is. That at least is that's the primal quality, that's the textural quality of it. You don't have to turn it into a new belief system. You don't have to turn it into a new metaphysics. You don't have to claim to definitely know that you are divinity beyond all form, utterly indestructible and eternal. You know, you don't have to take it to that place. It can be counterproductive to start to solidify new beliefs about this. You can just let the immediate textural quality of it be enough. Just this hot bath and freshness, this percolating, melting into this all present caramelization, this honey river, just being this honey river of grace flowing through itself without a sense of it being about me or personal. It simply is, and it is complete. It's whole. It is totality. That is again, the experiential quality, flavor, texture, the primal flavor of this nowness feels like totality, wholeness, completion. That's why in Dzogchen Buddhism, the word Dzogchen means great completion or great perfection, referring to this here now, the only place we ever are. And we can realize that if we want to. We can get curious. We can investigate that. We can, in a flash, suddenly notice that, begin to open to that, notice that that has always been the case. There's always been this ever present grace, this ever present love. It fully embraces every aspect of itself. It has no war with any aspect of itself. There's a pure harmony here that has a quality of love. We can notice that that's always been there, and we can, even as we discover that this is it already and this has always been it, we can also just let it deepen. It seems to have a tendency to want to deepen. It wants to sink into every layer, every cell, every aspect of the body so as to transfigure each body into a living, transparent declaration of grace, a living, transparent emanation of grace, a hollow bone through which the primordial jazz can simply jazz itself, can simply express freely into the field. And paradoxically, that is when you feel most most like yourself, most in harmony, when you are barely even there or not even there, and it just feels like life's music is just cascading through. You are the river and you are being played, you are being expressed, you are being harmonized with the whole. So this is available. This is a possibility. The the inner work works, or perhaps the interplay, better stated. I really, really like approaching all of this as a playful exploration. That always resonated more with me. Um, Thank you, Peter Brown, for putting it in those terms. That always resonated more with me than some big serious meditation practice like, oh, I need to do my Zazen for 4 hours today. Like I was never I was never that type of seeker. Peter's approach of this is an all-present, playful portal. Check it out. Let yourself be seduced. Let yourself go into the radiance of what is here beyond all words, beyond all descriptions, and let that radiance do the heavy lifting. Just go to the actual fact of astonishing miraculousness here now beyond all description. And that will do the heavy lifting. That will gradually dissolve the less true snakeskins and shift your center of gravity, your deep belly level orientation as a being from feeling like small little encapsulated me clenching the fist to pure openness radiating as truth as grace. And yeah, so that's available. There is a there, and it's right here. It's ever deepening. There's not a there's not a finish line other than in the sense that this always is the finish line. This has always been it, and yet it continually opens into more of itself, continuously deepens, continuously blossoms, flowers, unfurls. Everything is it at all times. There's no way to get it wrong. It's just a noticing of what has always been the case, and that simple noticing dissolves gargantuan quantities of stuckness and blockage and coagulation, stagnancy, such that there can be a sense of freedom, flow, fluidity, floweringness. So, yes, that is available. There is a there. All the mystics and sages and saints across the ages who spoke about this oneness, this wholeness, they were not just blowing smoke. There's a reason why preternatural light seemed to sparkle forth out of their wide eyes. They were they were seeing something. They were seeing revelation, and that revelation is here now. It's continuously walloping us in the face. I'm looking out at this cerulean blue sky, and it's a jewel. It's an oceanic vastness. It's a pure openness. I'm seeing the sunlight playing upon these clouds over here, and it's just like what could be a more picturesque vista? Here it is. We found it. Here it is. We found it. Always, always here and now. Always here and now. So it's here. It's juicy. It's full. Um, it's also empty in a sense. It's weightless. It's free. It's not pinned down. It's spacious. It's vast. It's full of grace. It's full of light. It's full of love. It has the potential to unravel the knots and end the war within so that perhaps we can also end the wars without. Stop roundhouse kicking ourselves in the face for millennia on end as a species and actually give our children and grandchildren the world they deserve, where we snap out of this uh, hypnosis of endless violence, vengeance, and war, and just notice that freedom and peace are available, and we could live from that wholeness. We could create beauty together from and as that wholeness with no need for, dismembering each other. Yeah, it's insanity. It's non-sanity, a lot of what we see around us. And it comes from the illusion of separation, the illusion of being cut off and having something to protect and defend. So I would suggest that what I'm pointing at is the antidote to that. It's the opening to oceanic grace, all-encompassing grace, seeing that there truly is no separation and that what you do to another, you do to your own self in a deep sense. You do to your own child, your own brother and sister, your own self. So, thank you for listening. This has been an enjoyable ramble on my end. I hope it has also been enjoyable for you, my friend. Thank you for listening. Hope you receive something here. Yeah, feel welcome to send any follow-up questions or comments. I really love hearing from you. So, love from my heart to yours. Thanks for listening. Peace. Hallelujah. Amen. May all beings know peace. May all be blessed. Amen. Hallelujah.